This past week, Hurricane Nicole, a Category 1 storm, forced residents in more than a dozen condominiums near Daytona Beach from their homes because officials declared the buildings unsafe. In September, Hurricane Ian caused more than $40 billion in damage across Florida. To cover the bill, it's widely expected insurance premiums are going to go up in the Sunshine State. Another disaster was already threatening to make housing unaffordable for many. Last year, Champlain Towers South, a 40-year-old condominium in the city of Surfside, collapsed in the middle of the night. 98 people were killed. More than a year later, no one knows why the building fell. We wondered why it was taking so long to find an answer. Tonight, you'll hear from the engineers leading the local and federal investigations and see how the Surfside mystery is impacting Florida condo owners.
The story will continue in a moment.
This is surveillance video from a nearby building. Look just beyond the pool. The middle of the condo collapses, disappearing into dust. Seconds later, the oceanside wing seems to melt to the ground. It was about 1:30 in the morning.
I am sound asleep, and I hear this awful noise, and I didn't know what it was. It felt like a mountain coming down, and 2 seconds later, all I remember is literally being thrown out of my bed and landing in front of the bed.
Reza Rodriguez lived on the 9th floor in the part of the building that somehow remained standing.
And there's a small balcony. So I stepped out, and my brain just couldn't compute what I was looking at. I said to myself, where's the building? Screaming at this time, where's the building?
The elevators were gone, the stairwells clogged with concrete. And there's no way for you to get out of the building at this point?
There's no way for me to get out, and I think I just snapped into, okay, this is the situation. I'm terrified. I don't want to die tonight.
So Rodriguez started navigating a way down, helping an elderly neighbor through dark hallways and over the debris and stairwells. It took more than 2 hours before they reached a floor low enough to be rescued with a ladder. Today, this is all that's left of the building, a concrete scar in the ground. The names of the victims are listed on a fence that surrounds the site. It includes retirees and young families.
People went to sleep that night. And the safest spot in their world is your home, your bedroom. It wasn't the safest spot in the world.
What answers do you want?
What answers I want? I want the truth for my friends who died. They deserve an answer.
The answer could be in this massive Miami warehouse where the remnants of Champlain Towers, 800 tons of it, is being stored. The facility is off limits to anyone except federal investigators who provided us with this video. They've started combing through the twisted steel and concrete for clues.
This aggregate's pretty long and angular, isn't it?
Glenn Bell is one of the team's lead investigators. Bell spoke to us from the headquarters of the National Institute of Standards and Technology, the agency conducting the federal investigation. When do you think we will know why the building collapsed?
So our timeline for this investigation was to finish our technical findings by the fall of 2023. Then we have to work on our report and recommendations, and we're looking for that the fall of 2024.
A lot of people in Florida can't understand why this is taking as long as it is.
I want them to know that we're working as fast as we can, and the implications for our findings are huge. We have to get this right.
Based on what's found, Bell's team will recommend any necessary changes to building codes or construction methods nationwide.
We have over 600 pieces of the structure that we're going to be doing a lot of testing on. And the more that you put together, the more the pieces of the puzzle begin to emerge and stories emerge.
What is the story that's emerged at this point? What do you know?
Right now, we're pursuing about 24 hypotheses about what the causes may have been.
Small sample collection that helps.
Among the possibilities are shoddy construction, bad design, or faulty materials. Bell was on the engineering team that investigated the collapse of the World Trade Center following the 9/11 attack and came out of retirement to try and solve the Surfside mystery.
I've been investigating failures for over 40 years, and this particular investigation, I can say, is one of the most complex and challenging that has ever been undertaken.
Why is that?
Sometimes in building failures, the immediate causes are relatively apparent. We have no such apparent cause in Champlain Towers after well more than a year.
Investigators started scanning pieces of the debris into a massive 3D database last spring. Preliminary lab tests on building materials began in August. Glenn Bell told us if investigators discover anything that poses a danger to other buildings, they will reveal it immediately. Is it possible, after the investigation's complete, that you won't know what caused the building to collapse?
I'm confident that we will, but it will take a long time.
Back in Surfside, Alan Kilsheimer told us the investigation doesn't need to take 2 more years. He was hired by the city of Surfside hours after the collapse to conduct its own investigation.
We have to get to the trigger. I always say a building talks to you if you know how to listen to it, all right? And it finds a way to support itself, or it finally says, I give up, I can't support it, I'll fall down.
Kilsheimer, a renowned engineer, was part of the investigation after the Oklahoma City bombing and the 9/11 attack on the Pentagon.
So where are you in the investigation right now? How far along?
We're about 8 months behind of where I wanted to be.
That's because Kilsheimer is still negotiating with the federal investigators for permission to do his own tests on the building samples locked up in that warehouse.
Is this unusual?
I've never run into it before.
Not with the Pentagon, not with the Oklahoma City bombing.
I've never run into it before. It was very unusual.
It took until this past August before Alan Kilsheimer was allowed to do this, his first big on-site test. We watched as his team used 350 tons of steel plates to measure how much load the structural pilings at the site could handle.
This building sat there for a very long time, right? It's been there for 40 years. It's full of people for 40 years. It has cars in it for 40 years. Buildings just don't fall down.
With neither Kilsheimer or federal investigators providing answers, survivors and victims' families have come up with their own hypotheses. One is that weeks of vibrations from construction of that oval-shaped condo next door somehow compromised Champlain Towers South. This 2019 email from a resident to the city complained the digging was, quote, too close to our property, and we have concerns regarding the structure of our building. Some of the people who lived in the towers have expressed a lot of concern about vibrations of the building that was next to it being built. Is that something that you're looking into?
These are just one or two of the many failure hypotheses that we're pursuing there. But we definitely are looking at it very carefully.
The companies that built that condo were among the participants in a $1.1 billion settlement with survivors and victims' families. The insurers for the project paid $400 million, but said the development had no role in the collapse. The deal's no comfort to Shannon Gallagher. She lives in a condo that's next door to new construction in Surfside.
This building's how old?
1965.
1965. How safe do you feel in it?
I don't. And
Gallagher is worried about the potential of vibrations from work plan just below her and has asked a Florida court to intervene.
so you see this little 2-story building. This building is going to be replaced with a building that's actually going to be significantly taller. It's going to be about 158 feet. You can literally feel vibrations when they were working on that building, and it's a further lot away. And you could be standing and feel the building vibrate.
I can hear people who live in Manhattan say, we build right next to each other, what's the problem?
I understand development. There's got to be some thought for who you're building next to.
Families of the victims have also accused the condo board at Champlain Towers South of not immediately repairing major structural damage. In this 2018 report, an engineer hired by the condo board flagged failed waterproofing below the pool deck and cracking in columns in the garage.
They needed $15 million to make the repair to the garage and the structure. They had $700,000.
Eric Glazer has practiced condo law in Florida for 30 years
These were built in the
and estimates he's trained 22,000 owners across the state in how to manage their condos.
In order to get on the board, there's no prior qualifications that you're an accountant or you're an attorney or you have any prior business experience whatsoever.
So what happens?
Sometimes the budget isn't done right. Sometimes the spending isn't done right. Oftentimes the repairs are not done right.
And Glazer told us condo boards can face intense pressure from neighbors, especially retirees, to keep costs low. That's not easy. 2/3 of the condos in Florida are at least 30 years old. In October, this 50-year-old condo in Miami Beach was deemed unsafe and its residents ordered out when engineers found a crack in a main support beam had expanded.
Doesn't anybody think eventually these buildings are going to need repair?
And now the bills come due.
And now the bills come due.
Future condominiums never have to worry about another Surfside taking place.
The scrutiny of condo boards pushed Florida's legislature to pass sweeping condo laws.
110 yeas, 0 nays, Mr. Speaker.
The bill passes.
The new requirements include structural inspections by engineers or architects for condos 3 stories or higher. Any recommended fixes must be made, and condo boards will have to set aside enough money for future repairs.
Now you're having situations in Florida where people on a fixed income are going to be asked to come up with thousands of dollars, and they don't have it.
How will this change who comes to Florida, who lives in Florida?
Well, the days of grandma and grandpa who are solely on Social Security coming to Florida and thinking that they're going to move into a condominium, that's gone forever.
Glazer expects the developers who have already transformed much of South Florida's coast into a canyon of glass and steel will look to buy out older condos that can't afford repair, then tear them down and replace them with a more profitable luxury condominium.
Less than a year after Champlain Towers collapsed, we had a development firm come and make offers. What we were offered was significantly below market value.
Robert Listman and his family live 2 doors down from the collapse in a condo built by the same developers as Champlain Towers South.
Do you think they thought these people are desperate, they're scared, and they're going to take these offers?
Absolutely. They could buy our apartment for what it's worth, they could buy our building for what it's worth, and still make a killing off of it.
Are you worried that another developer's going to come and say, hey, most of you aren't going to be able to afford this. Can I buy your apartment?
I know that there's going to be a lot of owners that are going to look at that amount and then look at this offer that they're given and go for whatever it is that they can get.
As part of the settlement with homeowners, Raisa Rodriguez told us she got less than market value for the condo she lost. $70 million was paid to lawyers who represented survivors and victims' families. As for the property where Champlain Towers South once stood, it's been sold for $120 million to a developer from the Persian Gulf with plans to build a luxury condominium.